All right, good morning. My name is Jeff Orrock here at the National Weather Service in Wakefield. Once again, sitting in for Katie Carter. She is continuing to engage VDEM leadership and the governor's cabinet, working on those briefings. So I'm kind of filling in for her here today. We're going to walk through everything that's kind of what's changed, what hasn't changed, with the forecast. The new thing this morning is we did issue a winter storm watch. The entire Commonwealth is in a winter storm watch for a mixture of heavy snow, potentially heavy sleet, and also maybe some very significant to dangerous freezing rain. So really this is kind of a statewide event, probably a little bit more limited over Southeast Virginia, which we'll talk about that. But for the rest of us, it could be a pretty significant event, and it's going to be a long duration event. So winter storm watch already in effect really for the entire Commonwealth moving forward. Just kind of breaking this out day by day, we set extreme here on Saturday. That's mainly going to be for heavy snow pushing in from the southwest and the south there overnight, but especially on Sunday, we're going to see some heavy sleet across central Virginia, heavy snow up over northern Virginia, and we've even across the south, maybe some freezing rain by I'd say late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, and then maybe some extreme potential here for ice, especially there on Sunday across central Virginia and southern Virginia, maybe even a little bit of western Virginia. Western Virginia is still kind of a little bit of a question there, but it's still going to get some ice. Question is how much. Also see the cold temperatures here highlighted, basically pretty significant cold the next couple of days, and then we're going to get extreme cold as we get into Monday and Tuesday of next week. So that's not a great story either. As far as the weather pattern's concerned, there really nothing's changed. We're going to see this low pressure system, here really on Friday. It's going to be coming across the Gulf Coast. That's the initial storm system, and as it moves up here across, into Georgia and stuff, it's going to start to push the moisture to the north. It's going to take a little while. There could be a little bit of light precip here on Friday in the southeast, but that's southeastern Virginia, southern Virginia. That's not going to amount to really much of anything. Most of Saturday probably looks okay for a good bit of the Commonwealth. We might start to see snow moving in to the far west sometime in the afternoon. We'll talk about that. But then as soon as we get, I'd say late Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, and especially Saturday night, it's coming in quickly. Sunday, a big mess. Could be have a lot of heavy snow in northern Virginia, a lot of wintry mix for a lot of the Commonwealth, but very cold temperatures and just constant accumulation. And that's because this Arctic air mass that's in place. And by Monday, especially by Monday morning, Monday afternoon, the storm system's way offshore, and we're in pretty good shape. If you really want to see how cold this air mass is that's coming, and this is what's driving our precipitation, right now in Virginia, we're pretty nice day. We're going to be in the 50s, headed up to near 60. Once you get over here are parts of Michigan, Iowa, you start getting in parts of Minnesota, you have temperatures right now that are in the negatives. So this is that Arctic air mass. It's starting now make its way south across into the continental U.S., and it's going to continue to drive south and eventually be on our doorstep. And that's this moisture that's going to move up from the south. And as this storm system develops along the coast, it's going to push that moisture inland. And this Arctic air mass is going to be coming down here at the same time. So really the two air masses are colliding. And, depending on how they collide, how far the warm air can push in from the coast, that'll be the difference between folks that get heavy snow in northern Virginia, maybe some significant snow and heavy sleet across central Virginia, along with some freezing rain, and then potentially some very dangerous amounts of freezing rain over portions of south central Virginia, and maybe even far western Virginia. So the cold air is there. Cold air is coming down, and so it's just going to be a matter of how these two weather systems actually collide. Again, we've already talked about the winter storm watch that's in effect for all the Commonwealth. So what you're seeing here is the snow accumulation only through Sunday morning. So this is where the snow comes in pretty earnestly, Saturday night, and especially during the early morning hours on Sunday. And it's going to be very cold. Temperatures are going to be in the teens and 20s from just about everybody. So the snow should be able to accumulate fairly readily. And so, I think by the time we get into around, let's say 7 a.m.-ish, we could already see some decent snowfall accumulations. So maybe, across central Virginia, maybe anywhere from 5 to 8 inches of snow, depending on where you are. Even southeast Virginia, Hampton Roads, I'd say anywhere from 2 to maybe 4 inches, depending on where you are. 4 inches here in Norfolk, maybe a little bit high. It could be closer more to 2 to 3. We'll just have to see. But bottom line, as you can see, everybody's getting in on some snow here, at least through through Sunday morning. Now, as the day progresses, the warm air comes in. It still has precipitation for over us all day on Sunday. It's just you're going to see a lot more sleet moving in here across central Virginia, even western Virginia, getting into sleet and freezing rain. But northern Virginia, once you get north of Richmond, Harrisonburg, up through Alexandria, Winchester, they're going to stay heavy snow for a lot longer. So these totals are going to end up being a lot higher once you get, I'd say, north of 64. Once you get north of 64, we'll show that. But I still think you're making a run at a foot of snow or more in those areas. And it's going to depend upon how far north that sleet gets as far as snow accumulations there. Across central Virginia, though, I think this is about as much snow as you're going to get. Maybe even back here, even towards Lynchburg and Roanoke, because eventually the sleet's coming in and it's going to cut those snow totals. And then you're going to have freezing rain coming in after the sleet. So we'll talk more about that. So looking at our probabilities, we kind of went with some lower probabilities to give folks a perspective. The probability of 3 inches of snow, especially, by early Sunday morning, pretty high. Even, once you get out of Hampton Roads, you still have about, a good 40-50% probability in Williamsburg, coming back here through the Tri-Cities, even north of Danville, maybe getting a good 3 inches of snow, north of Galax, and across the far western Virginia might actually still be able to see a good probability here of 3 inches of snow or a little more. So kind of showing that gradient where we might, even in the southern areas, see some snow accumulation before daybreak on Sunday. Starting to get in a little bit more total here on the 6-inch probability here on the right. Now you start to see that gradient kind of setting up over Richmond. I'm still showing a pretty good probability across central Virginia of making a run at 6 inches of snow. Same thing back here towards Roanoke, maybe trying to make a run of 6 inches of snow, but definitely much less probability of getting that much snow when you get across parts of the south side, Hampton Roads, getting here. Once you get, I'd say, especially south of Petersburg, much less probability of seeing 6 inches. It's going to be snow changing over to sleet pretty quickly there Sunday morning. So that's going to limit your accumulation. But once you get Richmond, north and west, the probability of at least 6 inches of snow, still, it's pretty good. That takes us into the 8-inch probabilities here on the left. And so again, you see that 8-inch probability really the best from 64 north. Once you get well north of Richmond, back towards Charlottesville, up towards Harrisonburg, DC, definitely better chance here that you're probably going to see 8 inches of snow and still have a pretty good signal in northern Virginia and parts of the Shenandoah that you're still going to see a foot of snow. So we could make a run on over 12 inches of snow, especially Harrisonburg, maybe even up to Winchester, back towards maybe parts of DC. So that's where the snow hangs on the longest. Maybe you get a little bit of sleet mixing in for a time there that kind of maybe keeps the totals from getting too high. But still a pretty good signal that you're going to see some pretty significant heavy snow up north. And at some point, it's going to turn into a wetter snow. And we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. In fact, the next slide. So this kind of shows you the snow character, what the snow is going to be like as it moves in. And so here on the left slide, this is basically late Saturday, especially Saturday night. And when the snow first comes in, it's going to be fairly dry because it's going to be cold. So it's going to be more of that powdery snow. The snow rates will kick in pretty quickly. We don't have snowfall rate forecast yet, but I would say the snow rates are really going to increase across the area pretty dramatically. I'd say late Saturday night, probably after about 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And the rates are really going to drive pretty high, I think, during the overnight hours. That's why we're accumulating so much snow overnight. It is so cold. It's going to be a drier snow for a while. And so that's going to get us maybe some decent accumulations here really through, I'd say, late Saturday night and early Sunday morning. By the time we get into early Sunday morning, though, we're starting to see that warm air come in a little bit. We're starting to mix with more sleet, especially over the southern parts of the Commonwealth. So as we're getting into a wetter snow, probably going to get a little bit of sleet mixing in with that. But notice northern Virginia stays still even a little bit of a dry snow, even as we push through Sunday morning. It will become a wetter snow as we push through Sunday afternoon across northern Virginia, and some sleet may mix in. And in Richmond, I'll show you guys here in a minute, but we may be almost all sleet and freezing rain across central Virginia as we push into the afternoon, and maybe from Richmond west, even back towards Lynchburg and Farmville and getting into lower parts of the 81 corridor. That could still be a lot of sleet going on there with a little bit of freezing rain and just a little bit of snow. So you really see that warmer air trying to come in from the south as we get through Sunday morning, and eventually we're changing over to sleet. So this is what we really started to pay attention to. We started pivoting this way yesterday, the increasing freezing rain potential. So the image on the left is the probability of getting a quarter inch or more of freezing rain. So this is not sleet anymore. This is ice sticking to the trees and power lines. And you really see a very sharp gradient that really runs from the northern neck all the way down through the middle peninsula, coming through about Williamsburg, and then really just, I'd say, between Suffolk and Franklin. And once you get west of this line, that may be where the Arctic air is able to kind of hold on. You'll probably have rain over areas over Virginia Beach and Norfolk and Southeast Virginia. But once you get west of this line, that's where it's going to be cold. And so we'll have sleet for a while, and then we may actually start changing over to freezing rain. And notice how that extends all the way back to Roanoke, back to Galax, even up into Richmond, almost a 61% probability of getting a quarter inch of freezing rain. So this will be nasty. Parts of central Virginia back to Roanoke, we may be talking about, anywhere from 4 to, let's say, 7 inches of snow, maybe an inch or so of sleet, and now you're going to put freezing rain on top of that. So this becomes a big icy mess. And this goes through most of, I'd say, Sunday, as far as that is concerned. On the right-hand side now, we're starting to see probabilities, pretty significant probabilities of a half inch of ice or more. So now you're getting into dangerous accumulations of freezing rain, and it goes all the way up into the Tri-Cities, very high signal there in the Tri-Cities, even up into Richmond, about a 42% probability now in the models of a half inch of ice. So that's very concerning. That extends back to just south of Roanoke and back even towards Galax. So you're starting to see this area here, Danville, over towards Emporia. Again, you got that sharp cutoff somewhere around Williamsburg down to Franklin, where, I think east of that, the temperatures are just warm enough. But as you get west of there, it's a sharp demarcation where we could be getting a lot of ice. We are seeing some low probabilities starting to creep in of anywhere from a 3/4 of an inch to an inch of ice. That would be catastrophic. So, we're going to have to watch this ice potential really, really closely. You could have a heavy snow event across northern Virginia and a heavy ice event across portions of central and southern Virginia, maybe even far west. Notice here in the left image, the far west, you're seeing some good signals there of a quarter inch of ice. So we're going to have to watch out for far western Virginia too. They may get a little more ice than what this is showing out there in the far west. So definitely, folks, I'd say, Kingsport, getting out there in towards the far western part of the state, southwestern part of the state, watch out for this, because the ice could be a bit of a problem out there as well. What I want to probably do is, I have the timing slides. I'm going to take folks through. This is actually one of the models, but it's doing a pretty good job. It's the evolution of the event hasn't changed really dramatically, but I'll kind of walk you through this. This is Saturday afternoon, so about 1 o'clock. So not much going on. Maybe some light snow starting to push in the far southwestern portions of the Commonwealth, but most of us are in pretty good shape by 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon. Moving through time, this is getting into late Saturday afternoon. Maybe starting to see a little bit of heavier snow now starting to move into the far west. So I don't think we'll see much accumulation in the western part of the state, probably until, I'd say, mid to late afternoon. But by the time we get into late afternoon, yeah, you can see some good rates coming in here, some darker blues, and maybe some light snow starting to basically, west of I-95, 81 corridor may have a little bit of light snow here, let's say by about 4 o'clock or so. But then, as you notice, as we push into 7 o'clock Saturday evening, now you're starting to see a lot of darker blues, and it's covering really most of the Commonwealth from 64 south. So this is where the snow rates are starting to kick in, I'd say about 7 to 8 p.m. With that sleet really just south of the border there in North Carolina. Continuing to kind of move through, this takes us into about 10 p.m. Saturday night. Now you're starting to see a lot of good snow falling. It's even north of 64 now. Not quite to northern Virginia. It is snowing, but the really good snow rates are probably from Fredericksburg and Charlottesville south. You're starting to see those real heavy snow rates by about 10 p.m. And then everybody starts to get in on the action by about 1 in the morning. And as we move through time, you do start to see the sleet moving in from the south. So most of the Commonwealth's in heavy snow, but Hampton Roads is moving into sleet, Emporia is moving into sleet, and even far western Virginia, notice how it's a sleet freezing rain mix. And I think that's pretty fair. Somewhere between, I'd say, 4 to 6 in the morning on Sunday, we're going to start to see this warm air maybe starting to push in from the south. And it just continues. This is now mid-morning on Sunday. So Richmond, Tri-Cities area is starting to change over to that snow sleet mix. But notice far western Virginia, solidly into freezing rain and sleet. So we're going to have to watch out for this. This is mid-morning on Sunday, and still we have a lot of snow over, northern Virginia, even a good part of the 81 corridor, from, I say, the Roanoke North, still has some snow. This trend continues. The sleet continues to push up. This is about 1 o'clock. Here we are at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, notice that freezing rain in Western Virginia. We have to watch out for that. I'm thinking that the ice totals may be a little decent out here. We're going to have to watch that. Sleet's pushed up almost to Fredericksburg now, but Northern Virginia is still into some pretty heavy wet snow. Notice how once you get over Southeast Virginia, I'd say, once you get from Williamsburg, southeast of Williamsburg, and I'd say east of Suffolk, it's mostly rain. And so, our folks on Hampton Roads, especially the south side, might see a bit of rain in the afternoon, and they get out of the woods. But now we have this freezing rain setting up, and the freezing rain area does expand as we get into, I'd say this is now getting into Saturday evening. Northern Virginia still snow, but now we even have sleet up to Charlottesville. And we still have freezing rain in Western Virginia. So again, it's still a big mess. By the time we push into, let's say, this is getting into about maybe 9, 10 o'clock Sunday night, we still have a lot. We have a lot of sleet really across the whole state, and we're seeing a lot of freezing rain. So this is actually getting us into Sunday night at about, let's say, about 9 to 10 p.m. And really efficient freezing rain. Freezing rain continues to expand. This is now getting into about 1 a.m. Monday morning. So realize this is a long haul event. I mean, this thing is lasting a very long time. The reason for that is we have moisture coming in from the south, and we have moisture coming in from the ocean, from the Atlantic. So we're really getting it from both sides, and that's why this thing is lasting just so long. So very heavy freezing rain, heavy sleet for just about everybody early Monday morning. And then things should pull off to the coast here, hopefully pretty quickly by about daybreak on Monday. We might see some wraparound snow and sleet here even at daybreak on Monday, but the system is trying to pull away from the coast pretty quickly. Bottom line is, if I just put this thing through motion through the entire time from late Saturday through Monday morning, it's just a long duration event. We have some type of freezing or frozen precipitation falling over the Commonwealth for really almost over 24 hours. So that's our main concern. So the onset timings really haven't changed much in our briefing. The ending time, maybe late Sunday night here in the far west, early Monday morning, maybe shortly after midnight, maybe about, 2 or 3 in the morning here on Monday. And then along the coast, it should end Monday morning. Again, could see a little bit of snow and sleet there wrapping around the backside of the storm around daybreak, but the system should be pulling out after that. We did include, I'm not going to go through this, but we did include this in today's briefing so that everyone can kind of get an idea of the timing of the precipitation in different cities across the Commonwealth and what the temperatures are. And the bottom line is, if you look at these temperatures on Saturday and Saturday evening, everybody's pretty much in the teens and 20s, except for along the immediate coast. So again, the ground's cold, it's going to be frozen. So as soon as the snow starts falling and we get any kind of snow rate, it's going to accumulate. I mean, it's just so cold. Sunday for most of the Commonwealth stays pretty cold. You see most areas, even here in Richmond, doesn't get out of the upper 20s. When you get out north of Richmond, mid 20s, even parts in the areas in the far west, you get out towards Whiteville, Wise. The snows Wise does warm up a little bit, but most everybody stays in the 20s for the most part. And then when you get into Sunday night and into early Monday morning, again, some really cold temperatures here. Everybody's in the teens and 20s, except for maybe folks right along the immediate coast. But if you notice, even the immediate coast goes back below freezing here as you get into early Monday morning. So precipitation will change back over to freezing rain, sleet, and snow, even in the far east where it had been warmer earlier. So just kind of breaking that down for everybody. Could be a little bit of a breeze with this. The wind's not extreme, but there is a breeze. So we put this out there as well, what our wind chills are going to be across the state. So some really cold wind chills Saturday morning ahead of the system as that first surge of cold air comes in. So you see some negative digits, single digits, maybe low teens here across a lot of the Commonwealth. A little bit warmer as the snow's falling. We just the nature of the beast. But then that next cold air surge comes in Monday night, Tuesday morning, and everybody is just about has negative wind chills there for Monday night. So very, very, very cold air coming in back behind this system. These are the temperatures, kind of daily across the Commonwealth, during the and after the event. And so Monday highs are probably going to struggle to get, upper 20s. Maybe you get low 30s in some spots, but it's going to be cold. The temperatures here Wednesday, Thursday are probably going to have to be lowered a little bit. I think this may be a little bit too high, depending on what models you believe. But with all this snowpack and ice, I do think these temperatures for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are going to have to be lowered. And look at the overnight lows. I mean, that really tells the story. Tuesday morning, these are the low. These aren't wind chills. These are low temperatures across the Commonwealth. So everything is going to freeze into one big block of ice. Very difficult to fight. There's not. I know VDOT's going to do everything they can do. There's not a lot you can do with these temperatures when things are freezing. It's hard to. You can't scrape ice, and so that's something to be aware of. Also, if we do have areas of heavy freezing rain with ice in the trees, some of these trees are going to be holding on to ice for quite some time. And then if you notice, there is a little bit of a breeze here on Sunday and Monday, so that is a concern. If we have really heavy laden ice and trees, and you get any kind of a breeze, it's going to be bad news. And the fact that it's just not warming up, we could see ice hanging in the trees for a while, and that may exacerbate our power outages and some of the issues that we see. Maybe even some areas becoming fairly isolated because of the amount of trees down. So we'll really have to watch that, but we need to be thinking along those lines now at this point due to the ice forecast. We did add this into the graphic. We have a very strong signal that this Arctic air mass is going to stay here for quite some time. And honestly, high temperatures, your afternoon highs may remain below freezing across a large portion of the Commonwealth all the way into the first week of February. This cold air is coming, and it's coming to stay. The lows at night will be below freezing probably for at least the next 10 days or more, maybe 2 weeks across the Commonwealth. So this cold air mass is no joke, and it's going to really kind of come in here and try to hang in here for a while. So we're trying to advertise that these cold temperatures, may be with us for quite some time. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll go ahead and stop there, and I'll stop the recording.